Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Maximum warp. Punch it. Punch it.
Punch it, Bishop!
Punch it. Punch that shit! Let's punch it.
Hello, everybody home, and welcome. This is Punch It, Writing in Star Trek. I am your co-host, Tristan Riddell, and with me, as always, is...
Charlene Schmidt.
Charlene, today, man, we made a promise, and we're going to make good on that promise, because today, we are talking about what if, which is one of my favorite phrases in the English language, what if Tasha Yar survived. What would she look like? What would she sound like? What would her character arc be? What kind of writing would it be throughout the seasons of the show? And also, what would happen to Worf? And this is something that we came up with on the spot last week, and it was kind of a moment of inspiration where we're just like, oh, holy crap, we should totally do that.
Yeah, it kind of hooked us, and we realized, okay, that's what we're doing next week. Let's get this out of our system right now while it's hot in our brains.
But before we get into that, we do have some network business that we need to talk about. And no, it's not telling everybody that they should go give us a review to possibly win a Star Trek Discovery book, even though you should do that. You should go.
Yeah,
and
you should totally do that. You don't have a whole lot left, or you don't have a whole lot of time left.
Go to iTunes, write us a review, give us a rating. You'll be entered into a contest for your chance to win a Star Trek Discovery novel, Drastic Measures. And it's a good time. But the network business is actually a little bit more on a somber note. No, it's very much is on a somber note. I'll just be blunt about it. We got hit with a legal claim. The network itself got hit with a legal claim, and we can't go into specifics about what is going on. All we can tell you is that we need your help. We need your help to fight this, and we are going to fight this, and we are fighting this.
Yes,
and
it kind of came as a bit of a surprise, too.
It came as a huge shock, and the amount that they're asking for is less than what it would be to go to court, and that's a very strategic move on their part, and we don't have business insurance or anything like that, and that's kind of the problem that we're in, is like we're just a bunch of nerds, like talking about nerdy things, and so what we're hoping for is that our loyal and loving listeners who have supported us for years, supported you and I specifically for almost 7 years now via podcast, because a lot of people followed us over from To The Journey. We're starting a GoFundMe. So if you go to gofundme.com/thenerdparty, you'll see the amount that we're trying to raise. It's $8,100. It may sound like a lot, because it is, but we need that in order to help fight this legal battle and help fight against predatory legal practices like this one. And it's, it just sucks because we're just doing our thing, and this comes out of nowhere, and we don't want to go to court. And so we're trying to do different things. We're trying to, fight this in the only way that we know how. And in order to do that is we need to rely on listenership, because another bit of honesty is that money that we're asking for, if we can't raise that online through our listeners and through supporters and friends and family and everything like that, I personally, Tristan Riddell, will have to pay for that. It'll come out of my personal finances. So that's over $8,000 that I'll have to drop on a check. And
that's a nice, sizable amount of money that I imagine you just have laying around for, just for some random thing, of course.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I walk around with that in my wallet at all times, because you never know what kind of Star Trek merch you're going to need to buy at any month. Like, I may need to buy...
That's an entirely different thing. That's called a convention.
Well, speaking of which, I know a lot of this is convention season for people. And as nerds, we buy a lot of stuff. We buy a lot of media and action figures and photo ops and signatures and everything like that. And so we're kind of asking you guys, if you could just, I know that not everybody can donate, but if you can give, if instead of, buying that action figure or going to that movie, that midnight showing, or buying that photo op or that signature, just one signature, one photo op, something like that, if you could maybe consider giving that to us, so that you can help us as a podcast, as a blog, as social media accounts and everything like that, because the dangerous part of this is not just, financial for us, but if we get hit like this in the way that we were, everybody's open to it. If you host a podcast, if you run a website, a blog, a website with patrons, or even sell merchandise, a non-copyrighted merchandise in a store, this could happen to you. And so we're trying to help with that. And so again, that's GoFundMe.com/thenerdparty. GoFundMe.com/thenerdparty. Check it out. There's a video of me talking about it. And it's transcribed in case you can't watch the video or listen in. And and also if you do support, if you can, please use the hashtag TNPFight on social media to help spread the word. You'll be able to find these links on our Twitter page and our Facebook page. They'll be pinned to the top on both of them by the time that this recording is out. And honestly, Shar, you and I are very appreciative, and the whole network is appreciative of what you guys can do. And we know that we have some of the best listeners over the past almost decade.
Wow, okay, when you put it that way, I feel so old. But yeah, we've been doing this for a long time. We've had people listen to us for countless hours in their car and their earbuds, what have you. Every little bit helps. If you love us, please, please, please help. And if you can't support financially, sharing on social media also helps. Spread the word. And then together we can fight.
All right, so moving on to non-somber stuff and fun stuff, like a what-if scenario of what if Tasha Yar didn't die? I remember years ago we did an episode on To the Journey, speaking of To the Journey, where we did a what-if scenario of what if Catherine Janeway died in like season 3 or 4 or something like that. And people
we did.
read the headlines without actually listening to the episode.
Oh, the backlash.
They got so bent out of shape, saying like,
guys,
Catherine Janeway doesn't deserve this. This is just more Janeway hating. Have you ever actually listened to the show?
Oh, right? Oh my gosh. Yes, it was that very knee-jerk Facebook reaction. Oh, how dare you, when they hadn't listened to a single second of the episode, which really I think was a great episode. It was a nice exploration. It was purely a what if. We did not want Janeway to die, nor would we ever. And so I guess now with this one, we're doing the opposite. What if she had lived? It's more uplifting. Fun. So maybe the knee-jerk reaction on this is probably, I don't know. I mean, the internet is the internet. People are going, why'd you do that? That's so stupid. We all know that she died. Yes, we know. This is a what if. Keep listening. Let's just hang with us for a little bit longer. Maybe we can rein you in.
Absolutely. So with Tasha Yar, we all know that she died in Skin of Evil. And it was an odd thing because the Denise Crosby, the actress, wanted to die. She wanted to leave the show because she felt like her character wasn't getting enough attention. Well, this was a surefire way to make sure that you got no attention by asking
if you're
to die.
dead. Well, and the weird thing though is that she did come back for various things over the years. And actually, I don't know if this maybe did her character in good stead, or if she had stayed on, she probably would have had better paychecks over the years. But things went out the way that they did, and she still has quite a legacy as a piece of TNG. However, had she stayed aboard, I do think a lot of things would have changed, and that's what I'm so excited to explore with you today, right now.
I'm excited too because, as I mentioned in my previous episode, is that like Tasha Yar was always a family favorite growing up. Everybody loved Tasha. If there was any kind of merchandise around Tasha Yar, we would try to get it as soon as possible, and it was very rare. Like I actually went. I was
going to say, how much was there?
I actually have a Tasha Yar action figure still in the case, still in the box,
nice, from
1987. And it's a pride and joy of mine. I love it. But it's so with Tasha. So I think we gotta try to divorce ourselves from the outside world of saying like, oh, well, Denise Crosby wanted to go and she wasn't getting enough attention. So we're gonna be talking about like what most likely would happen, but also what we want to happen.
Okay, so we can differentiate between the two because let's start out with just the real life scenario. If Denise Crosby had not left the show, it's very likely that somebody like Marina Sirtis or Michael Dorn might have eventually left the show because they were all kind of fiercely competing for space. They all knew that they weren't getting enough. Their characters were not living up to their potential. They weren't getting much screen time. Personally, my prediction would have been if Denise Crosby hadn't asked to leave, that eventually Marina Sirtis would have left. What do you think about that?
I think that's very likely. But the first thing that popped into my head
was that if Denise Crosby didn't leave, that we wouldn't have, I don't think
Gates McFadden would have returned.
Okay, what makes you think that?
I don't think she would have been asked to come back. I know that Patrick Stewart. I know that Patrick Stewart was a big reason why Gates McFadden came back. Like, he went out to her and said, "We need you to come back. We need your kind of influence. You know, like, we need your character. We need your presence. Everything like that." And I don't know all of the story, but she, like, whatever amends could be made, she made them and then came back.
Yes,
but
she actually goes into some detail about this in a recent interview she did with Mission Log.
Nice.
So go back and listen to that if you haven't. That was a great interview. She's very candid and honest, and especially about that whole thing about her leaving and her coming back.
I just feel like from a production standpoint, now I'm not saying this is what should have happened. I'm just saying that this is a possibility, that from a production standpoint, they're like, okay, well, this whole new Doctor thing's not really working out. And, you know, like, she's not going to stay forever. But we have the right amount of female presence now, and we kind of like this. And so we don't need Beverly as a character to come back, because we have Tasha Yar, we have Deanna Troi, and we can rotate out another Doctor if we needed to, or just like make it like the Engineer, where there is no Engineer. There's just somebody different every single week. So
Pulaski gone, nevertheless, because that didn't quite work. I see that as a great opportunity for Nurse Ogawa to step it up.
Oh, that would have been great, but I'm just saying that, like, but I think actually that's probably pretty accurate, that Nurse Ogawa would rise up, but she still wouldn't be a main character. I don't think that she would be.
Right.
It's just like with the Chief Engineer in the first season wasn't a main character.
So we'd have kind of like this rotating CMO, but Nurse Ogawa would be the more constant presence, maybe, in sickbay.
Yes.
That could have been interesting.
But the name wouldn't be in the opening credits, I don't think. And I think it's just because of backwards 1980 production thinking, where it's just like 2 women is enough.
Right. I mean, for as many steps as they've taken forward, there's still so many more to go. Yeah.
Let's I think we can kind of freeform a little bit, where we can say, like, okay, well, maybe this person wouldn't be here, but I think the main person we need to focus on is Tasha as we develop moving forward, and just really
Yes.
Worf as a side note. And I think the only reason why we're focusing on Worf and not some other people like, you know, Pulaski or Crusher or Sirtis or anything like that is because Worf was directly benefited from her passing.
Well, right, because ultimately he's the one who stepped up and became chief of security. So that alone right there, but let's discuss that. We have Tasha Yar still there. She's still the chief of security. Worf is her subordinate. Does this mean that maybe these two, there's certainly the opportunity for them to develop a deeper friendship? Is that something you would have wanted?
I think, man, I hadn't really thought of that, but that's,
Yeah?
I think that's very much something that could happen, because I would see that's the kind of thing where this would be from season 1. You could start a friendship, start a camaraderie. We're just like, you know, like my brother in arms, you know, warrior sentimentality. We serve together, and then maybe it grows from there to a friendship, a real friendship, and we could see a legit. And I'm not saying it has to happen, but we could see a romance instead of that crap one that we got with Worf and Deanna at the very last moment.
I definitely agree that Worf and Deanna never should have gotten together. Toward the end of the series, let's say season 6 or 7, maybe a romantic relationship between Worf and Yar would have been interesting. But I want to see them develop a really deep and complex friendship first and take their time with that. And of course, they're working together a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I almost envision this kind of like, maybe not quite as a buddy cop kind of a thing, but they know that they have each other's backs. They are solidifying themselves in these earlier years as a really strong, good team.
That's the thing, absolutely. Like, if for some reason some romantic relationship did develop, I wouldn't want to see it until the very end, because we had that foundation, unlike the one with Worf and Deanna, where it just came out of nowhere, a la Chakotay and Seven.
I mean, I know arcs were not the most common thing with episodic storytelling, but wouldn't it have been cool to possibly see the two fall in love. And could you imagine us shipping this so hard? Because long before, if the writers were to take this plunge, long before it would actually happen, we'd be saying, okay, now kiss, let's go, if we're into it. So, I mean, if they could have done that, if they would have gone that route, that would have been really, really interesting. Also, I do think that Tasha Yar would have been a good, suitable mate for Worf.
I think so too, and I think that Data thing would have just been a fling,
and it would have been fine, and there wouldn't have been anything more that came of it, because that
it might
was,
have been awkward when Worf finds out about that.
Yeah, see, that would make great storytelling if he found out about that, and he got like. But think of it like because I think the most fascinating part would be pre-romance. And because
it always
would be a
is.
lot like Janeway and Chakotay, where I could just see a moment where where Chakotay is thinking about Q, and he's like, I know I have no right to be jealous, but this makes me feel, horrible. I could see Worf struggle with that because he respects Data so much,
right? And maybe he's in the holodeck or something, just beating the bejesus out of a punching bag or something, trying to vent out frustration. Somebody walks into the holodeck, because they always do. There's no such thing as privacy. And I don't know, maybe it's Geordi, and he's like, what's got you all riled up?
and I think that would have been a great signifier as to Worf is developing feelings, like to the audience. That's us saying, like, oh, he likes her more than just a comrade, more than just a fellow officer. Like he wants something more.
Yeah, that might very well be the turning point where it occurs to him. He's finally aware, oh, we're not just working together. I'm into this.
So how does Tasha feel about this, though? We're talking a lot about Worf, but how does Tasha feel about this? Does she want to be involved with the first Klingon in Starfleet? Does she want to be involved with a subordinate? Does she want to,
Right?
does she feel like it would hurt her ability to command? Does she want to not involve herself with anybody so she can focus on her work? But I feel like when she was off the bridge, I feel like Tasha was a very different person. I felt like Tasha was kind of flirty and fun-loving, and but on the bridge she was just like screamy. And
This
what do you
brings up
think?
a possibility. If we don't hypothetically have Gates McFadden on the show, because I'm thinking Troy and Beverly were kind of each other's confidant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without that, in can step Tasha. And maybe she and Deanna have that kind of a friendship where they're talking about boys, relationships, they're getting into their really weird exercise leotards, and they're stretching out, that sort of thing. And maybe Troy is helping her work through her questions, her feelings. I have a feeling, in terms of a romance, Tasha's not going to be interested for a good while.
Mm-hmm.
She's got to figure herself out first. And I think with an evolution over 7 years, you can watch her go from being that really in-your-face and aggressive personality that we see in the beginning that we talked about last week, to smoothing that out a little bit, feeling like she can stand tall on her own 2 feet. She's the chief of security on the flagship of the fleet. She's doing well in her job. She feels good about her job. She's starting to feel good about herself. And then maybe she can start thinking about letting somebody else in, but it's going to take a while for her. So I think Worf is going to develop those feelings first, but she's the one who's going to raise all the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I want to do this? Is it okay to fall in love with a subordinate? Or is it really just better to maintain this as a friendship? Can we work together and maintain a romance at the same time? They're going to have to go through all of those ethical questions.
I could see what I could really see that I would love is because,
at the beginning, as we all know, and what we've discussed, Worf was not a part of the security detail. He was actually, we don't even really know exactly what he did or does before this, because if you go on Wikipedia on Memory Alpha, all it says is he was assigned as a command division bridge officer. That's all it says, a command division bridge officer. So, was he the subordinate under Tasha? Was he not? We're not quite sure, but I could see him transferring. What I'd love to see is Worf transferring to security because that's where he should be, but also to get closer to Tasha. And then we see him transfer out when they talk about how they can't be together. Maybe that's a sacrifice that he makes. He's like, maybe this is what pushes him, instead of Deep Space Nine, to go back to command.
Ooh. Now, one strength that Worf has is he's a good tactician. So even though he was working security, maybe that is the sacrifice he makes, is going to something related, like tactical, but he's not in quite the same department. They have to work together a lot still, but she's no longer his supervisor. I could see that happening.
Yeah, and maybe she's the one that pushes him towards it. Maybe she's the champion, like she's his cheerleader who says like, you can do this, and then also the bonus is boom.
But I also think, Worf is making that decision on his own as a kind of a little act of sacrifice, because that very clearly states his intentions with Tasha.
And we don't see this until much later on, and that was like where we thought about it, with him, going crazy with the data news. That was our question. This is our answer. This is our reaffirming.
Love it. Yeah, you let a few episodes percolate just a little bit, make us wonder if this was going to work out or not, and then decision time comes, and we know exactly where it's headed pretty much from that point forward.
Well, let's talk about the friendship. You brought it up a little bit. Let's talk about the friendship between Deanna and Tasha. How would that go?
As much as I kind of hate the aspect that Troy can be so girly, this isn't an entirely bad thing, right? So I think it might actually be beneficial for Tasha a little bit too, because she does have a feminine side, but she doesn't, look the part. So I kind of see them as a nice counterbalance to one another, where maybe Tasha is maybe helping Deanna, like, okay, get your mind off of the guy of the week a little bit and think about something else. But meanwhile, Troy is saying, well, get in touch with this side of yourself. It's okay. Because I do think Tasha is going to fight this pretty hardcore for a good while.
I go back and forth on this, because in the episode The Naked Now, when Tasha actually slept with Data, I know that everybody was under the influence, but it's all about like letting your inhibitions free. And so like that piece of themselves was always there. And so with her, like in 1987 and with this episode, they portrayed her as super sexy, like super sexy dress, super sexy navel, and just like like extreme hairstyle, and she was just totally coming on to Data. Now again, I know she was under the influence, but that part is inside her. I would love to see Troy make it her mission to bring that person out of her shell and get that person to come out and be sexy, kind of like what Jadzia tried to do with Kira.
Ooh, okay, yes, that could be a very good dynamic.
That's what I would love to see. And so where Tasha, she resists it, of course, but she ultimately kind of gives in and embraces her sexual side and gets free of a few inhibitions.
I like that. And then to counter that, though, maybe Tasha's the one who's pushing Troy to maybe be a little more career focused, push her toward that, getting that command track and that sort of thing. Put on the uniform, for crying out loud.
That's such a good idea.
Wouldn't that be great? Because then they're really helping each other based on a really solid friendship. Yeah, I see this working really well.
That I love that. Out of everything that we've talked about so far, that's probably the best idea, where she she helps Dana get into the uniform, get out. Like maybe she even says, like, you look like an intergalactic cheerleader. Do you do that on purpose? No one's going to take you seriously.
Tough talking Tasha's going to lay it straight. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, when that moment happens, when she's on the bridge and there's a catastrophic failure, all across, they think that everybody else may be dead, and so she's in command because she's a lieutenant commander. Maybe we have a wrap up after that episode, and Tasha's the one that says, like, you should take your exams instead of going to Riker. She goes to Tasha.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And you know what else I would have loved is after the episode Disaster, where she has to assume command and has to make some very tough decisions. That's when she puts on the uniform. Forget Jellicoe. That's ultimately what makes her say, hey, okay, you know what? Now that I've gotten my feet wet, I'm in it.
Well, the disaster was the reason why she took the exams.
Right?
But you're talking about that's the first time you want to see her in the uniform, not Jellicoe. You want to see her in the uniform.
Make a hard turn. Yeah.
Okay, no
After
preview.
that the whole experience really changed her. And we have Tasha then to thank for kind of pushing her in that direction just in general.
Absolutely.
And then they can kind of help each other, keep going on that path, push each other a little bit. I would love to see them push each other. Not be contentious, but really make them think. Consider things they wouldn't consider on their own.
Now, Picard. Picard has a unique relationship with every single one of his bridge crew. It's different, it's individualistic, and we only got a sneak peek of it during Hide and Q, where Tasha Yar, I didn't really like that, but like Tasha Yar was in tears, like she was breaking down. I hated that. And like Picard came and consoled her. And that was a very un-Picard-like thing to do, because in the first season, Picard was very much a, stiff upper lip, stick up his butt. And but he let her, he said it's okay, it's okay to feel this way, it's okay to cry, and everything like that. And so I feel like that would have started something. That would have started in, don't take this the wrong way, but it would have started an intimate relationship, an intimate friendship that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been possible with a Worf Picard situation. Because with Worf and Picard, it was very much he is my captain and I'll follow him to the through the gates of Stovokor.
Yes.
But with Yar, I would have loved to have seen, and I'm not saying this just because she's a woman, it's just because of how I view Tasha. I would have loved to have seen her protect Picard in a very what's the word I'm looking for? Baseline way. Like, this is in her bones. It's not just because he's my captain, it's because he's my captain. I protect him at all costs, even if it means maiming myself or dying myself. I would love to have seen how she reacted to Best of Both Worlds. How does she take it personally?
Ooh, that could be, yeah, man, that could be a nervous breakdown, to be honest.
I would have loved to have seen her just an absolute wreck. Now, we saw Worf get a little bit emotional, just like one little line where he's like, he is a Borg, like he was about to cry or something. But I would have loved to have seen, I'm going to take your words, have almost a nervous breakdown, because she took it as not only as a career slight, but as a friendship slight, because her captain was taken off of her bridge under her watch. And she's not going to rest until she gets him back.
She feels responsible. She failed him, which is maybe one of the worst things she could possibly do. I like that. Yeah. Have a massive breakdown, withdrawn in her quarters. Deanna has to come by, have a really serious counseling session.
I'm going to, even though it should be Troy, because you're right, it should be Troy because she's the counselor. I would love to see Riker come and tell her what's what. I would love to see the acting captain.
You need to
step
up and do your duty.
Like, listen, like, if I can get over this and do my job, so can you. Like, he was like a father to me. He was like a father to us all. And I need you to set aside this. I need you to remove it, put it in a box so that we can get the job done.
Ooh, okay, that could be a very good conversation. Because the way I'm envisioning in my mind the relationship Picard and Tasha have, it's not quite father-daughter, but she really looks up to him for guidance. So that would make a lot of sense. And maybe that gives them something to connect with, because Riker feels very much the same way about Picard. And maybe they did not know that about each other. I mean, it was there in plain sight, but having that conversation could really bond the two together. Then she can pick herself up from the bootstraps and say, okay, I'm here. You need me? I'm here. Let's go. Let's get him back.
I like that. I think I would go even further. You said that, like, not quite father-daughter. I would totally embrace the whole father-daughter thing, because she had a horrible childhood and she had no one to look up to, and like she was constantly trying to get away from violence. Then there's this man who is, a leader and is a diplomat and great at what he does and is a calming force for her. I want to see a father-daughter relationship, because with Riker, I would love to, because where with Picard she has a surrogate father, I would love to see with Riker she has a surrogate brother.
In a way that is really appealing, and at the same time I shied away from going that far, because so many daddy issues among Star Trek characters already.
It's true.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
But this is in the 80s, so we would be the progenitors of the daddy issues in Star Trek characters.
Oh, great. Let's start the trope. Why not?
We would set the trend is what we would be doing.
All right. Fantastic.
I think so. So, okay, we kind of established a relationship with Picard and Riker and Deanna and definitely Worf. Now, how do we deal with Data?
Well, I think they keep things pretty professional. At the end of The Naked Now, she says to Data, it never happened. I think they, at some point, have some conversation in 10 Forward where, yeah, it did happen. And you know what? I'm totally cool with it. I enjoyed the experience. But I don't want to have an intimate relationship with you. It was a thing of being under the influence, and it was what it was, but we have to leave it off here. It's going to be really awkward, and I'm not sure what else I would add to that, to be honest. It's just going to be a difficult conversation, but I do think it needs to be had if they're both alive.
I would love to see Data pursue her, honestly. I would love to see...
You think?
I would love to see it in kind of like a juvenile aspect, where...
Oh, yeah?
When you look at juveniles, when you look at like people in middle school or high school, basically teenagers, and they have, I can only really speak from a teenage boy perspective because I was a teenage boy. When you find a girl who shows you attention, even if it was just a one-time thing or just something super casual, boys in general, especially teenage boys, always blow it out of proportion. They always think that it means something when it didn't. And I'm not even talking about, like, they had sex. I'm not even talking about going that far. Like, people can take like a glance or a look or a word or just a random act of kindness as some sort of romantic intent, and that's I don't want to open up that can of worms. But in many ways, Data is a juvenile. He's an emotional juvenile, and so I would love to see something years down the road where Data tries to explore his romantic side a little bit more. And he in his brain, he's like, well, logically, I mean, like, I should try to pursue a relationship with somebody that I was intimate with before. That would save me a lot of time. And, like, I'm already familiar with this person, so why not pick that back up? And so, like, he does it in a very Data way, but it's analogous to a high school relationship, and she's just having none of it.
It's not going to work. I see that happening in the earlier years. Okay. Where after they've had the experience, a little later down, maybe toward the end of season 1, he says, I want to pursue this. I would like a relationship, and I want to have a relationship with you, Tasha. And it's not going to work. For the record, teenage girls, we totally blow things out of proportion too. Like one little glance, one little look, and we overthink everything. And I think that is what causes a lot of the confusion of those early relationships because we don't know what it means. None of us. So that's what those years are for, is to figure it all out.
See, I would love to see a fun Data episode, kind of like the one that we got later on when he was pursuing a romantic relationship with that other woman in operations. Jenna, thank you. I would love to see something like that where he tries to quote unquote woo her, and he does all of his research, and like like there's flowers everywhere, and he does romantic gestures, and he doesn't
maybe
quite
he does
get them
that
right.
with Tasha.
Yeah,
and she's just, this is really sweet, Data, but you're doing it all wrong, and
exactly.
I'm just not that into you. Poor Data, but it's a lesson he needs to learn. That would be pretty cool. Now, one thing that I have to bring up is if Tasha is still alive, yesterday's Enterprise is either a very different episode or not an episode at all. And that's a big sacrifice because that is one of the most beloved episodes in the whole series.
It really is. And I know, like, anything we do from here on out is going to drastically change yesterday's Enterprise so that it's not the episode we know and love. I think we need to make peace with that. And I think people who are screaming at their radios and at their phones right now need to make peace with it too, is that, we're not erasing yesterday's Enterprise because it's still on your DVD. It's still on your Netflix. It's there. But
remember,
whatever
this
we
is
do,
a what if.
This is a what if scenario. Whatever we do kind of removes that from the table. We could still have the Enterprise C come in, but it's not going to be the same yesterday's Enterprise that we know and love. Is there a way that we can incorporate Worf into it?
No, because, I mean, Worf isn't dead either. You almost have to do maybe a different timeline because the big part of the whole story is the fact that Tasha died a senseless death. Without that, it's a different story.
We have Beverly come back. I don't know.
That doesn't... I'm trying to think right now just of how that would work, and I'm having a hard time envisioning how significant that would be. That might, you know what, in the future, that might be a really good thing. If we want to continue this trend, that what if, scenario, we write that episode on the fly, but we make it its own episode.
I think that's a definite possibility, but I think I'm just going to say anything we do is going to be second best to Yesterday's Enterprise because it was such an amazing episode. So I say let's just move on and say like it happened or it didn't happen. It doesn't matter. We just need to separate ourselves from it. So I mean,
it's a big question mark right now. Let's leave it at that.
The trade-off of having Tasha for 7 seasons is we don't have Yesterday's Enterprise and we don't have Sela. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Sela, I can kind of take it or leave it. She was all right. It was kind of a nice triumphant return for Denise Crosby because of the timeline.
Great,
but if she's already on the show, we don't know what we're missing.
Yeah, she was great, but I don't think for this scenario, we don't need to really worry about it.
We're growing and developing, I think, several characters because Tasha's still on board. So this for me is a win-win-win-win. We're making Troy better, we're making Worf better, we're making Tasha Yar better, at the expense maybe of Dr. Crusher.
Yes.
Something had to give.
But then again, I mean, some would argue that Dr. Crusher really never was fleshed out to begin with.
Right. That's something that you could argue. So maybe that's not such a great loss there then. I don't know.
I mean, I like the character, just like a lot of people, but the writers just really didn't give her enough service. But that's neither here nor there.
Right. Yes. So all in all, are there any final things that you would want to add? Because I feel like we've kind of had a nice little overarching thing starting from the early years, leading down to the romance happening in the later years. Is there anything else that you want to add to Tasha's arc?
It's hard because we kind of, like with a great ensemble show like The Next Generation is that many people are defined by their relationships with other cast members. And I feel like that's kind of how we tackled it with Tasha. That like we defined her by Worf and Riker and Picard and Deanna and Data. And I feel like the only people we didn't talk about was Geordi, Wesley, and Guinan. And I think that's fine. I mean, they can just have their casual relationships. Not everything has to be epic or amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just like, oh yeah, no, I know a guy and she's great. And then you move on. Like that's what it is.
They just work together. They don't really necessarily have to all have these deep interconnected friendships. I think there's enough here as it is.
I think the only thing that's missing is because we have a few romantic things. We have a few friendship things. We have some career-based stuff with Worf and also with Best of Both Worlds and everything like that. I feel like there needs to be one more thing, and I want to leave that up to the listeners.
Okay, Steve Jobs, what have you got?
No. That's what I'm saying is that like I think there needs to be one more thing, and I want to leave that up to the listeners. What is missing from our Tasha Yar what if scenario? What would change? What would be different? What wouldn't happen? Or what do you think should happen? Whether it's relationship-based, career-based, or whatever it is, we want to hear from you guys. Go to thenerdparty.com/contact, select punch it from the drop-down menu, fill out the form, it'll send us an email. You can also find us on Twitter at Join Nerd Party. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/thenerdparty. And we want to hear from you guys. Please let us know.
Yeah,
and also
share your ideas.
While I have your attention, this is a reminder. Go to gofundme.com/thenerdparty. Help us out if you can. We'd really appreciate it. And let us know on social media or retweet us on social media, share it on Facebook. Use the hashtag TNPFight. Again, gofundme.com/thenerdparty. Anything that you can give would help us out.
Tremendously. All right, guys. Well, this was fun. I'm really, really, really glad that we ended up doing this episode. I think there's even more room to grow down the line should we want to revisit it. I think we punched up Tasha Yar I think we did a decent job. Go us. Yeah.
I think so too. And so whatever we talk about next week, we are definitely going to punch it up just as much.
Ready for warp, sir.
Let's punch it.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.